excitement is different than anger, but when you are excited, you are producing some cortisol, but you're releasing all these other feel-good hormones that are great and anti-inflammatories.
You're listening to the Integrative Medica podcast with Dr. Jake, a licensed naturopathic doctor who will show you how to tap into your body's natural ability to heal your health issue and improve your symptoms quickly without harmful drugs or devastating surgeries. So pour some tea, get comfortable where you are, and enjoy this healing episode.
Hey, welcome back to the Integrative Medica podcast, where today we're talking about anger and your health.
So talking about anger is such an important topic, and not just anger itself, talking about how psychology can affect your health, because there's so many things that happen when you psychologically are angry, and we're going to dive into that.
I'm really passionate about this topic because you and I were talking about this in your office, and that's when I was like, we should talk about this on the podcast. So maybe we could just pick up right there and talk about how does anger affect your physical health?
So a lot of people might think, okay, I'm angry. It might affect my relationships, which is a huge thing too, and that will affect your health. But also it stimulates certain hormones to be released from your body. So the big one that gets released is cortisol. And when you release that cortisol, it's okay to release it periodically. But if let's say you're getting angry all the time, or you're going to be releasing that cortisol all the time, which then is going to affect your health by it causing an imbalance of your immune system. Mm-hmm. By it increasing blood sugar release from your body. It's going to mess with all your hormones throughout your body. So your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone. It's then going to affect how your gut works. It's going to cause inflammation in there. It's going to affect how you digest your food, etc. So it's not just a small thing just to get angry. It's going to affect your entire health. And maybe the health issues you're dealing with is because of your anger issues or your self-esteem issues or things like that.
That's just opens up a whole giant can of worms, because I don't consider myself an angry person per se, but I am an excitable person, right? I get really sort of like, come on, today we got to get this done, and today we got to get that done. Does my body recognize that as anger, even if I'm not anger per se, and it's still releasing the same amount?
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but it can be excitement is different than anger. But when you are excited, you are producing some cortisol, but you're releasing all these other feel-good hormones that are great and anti-inflammatory. So the emotion matters. But let's say you're all the time excited and all the time, that's not healthy either.
Yeah.
Like we hear, you got to have a balance in all things. It's definitely true. You got to have a balance in all things.
Okay.
Not to say that you have to be angry. There's no benefit from being angry.
Okay, then how do we stop from being angry? Like that's the thing. And aren't you
that's
like
a good question, right?
Right.
There's a lot of things we could talk about with that. There's some suggestions we have, but every person is going to be a little bit different of how they're going to deal with their own anger.
And I want to get into those things, but I also want to really lay the groundwork for people that are listening right now, because when the cortisol and the other negative, I guess, hormones and chemicals are in your body, it changes the environment of your cells in which your cells are growing, right? And then that affects how your cells grow, right?
Perfect, yeah.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Because, at first, when I first heard that being angry affects your physical health, I was like, that's kind of like some hocus pocus stuff.
I dived into that really quick, but I talked about cortisol. So you're talking about growth and how your cells work. Let's talk about maybe growth hormones. That's a pretty popular topic. People like to want more growth hormone because they want to be stronger or they want to be younger again. Yeah. So let's say you're angry all the time and you're pumping out cortisol. Guess what? We talked about how that causes hormonal dysregulation, and it does affect growth hormone. So if you're angry all the time, you're going to decrease your growth hormone and you're going to age faster, and you're not going to be as healthy.
How do you recognize, first of all, anger versus excitability? Because I will admit, when I'm kind of in my zone, it's not a positive emotion. It's certainly where I wouldn't call it anger. It probably looks a lot like anger. You know what I mean? How do we even become aware that we're angry?
You can know that you're maybe getting a little angry if you start noticing your blood pressure starts going up, you start getting a little red, you start getting your heart rate starts to go, you start maybe getting a little tingly. These are reactions happening in your body. Those are the chemical changes that are happening in your body when that happens. So when you start noticing that, you might be like, okay, I need to chill out a little bit. But a short term getting things done and then it stops is totally good and healthy. Having that long term, let's say you're excited for like hours on end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not very good emotion. It's much better than being angry for that long. Like we said, both are going to be producing cortisol, but then there's other reactions happening and you're feeling good and you're increasing dopamine release. And this is all good. You're not doing that when you're angry all the time. With excitement, you are. Your emotions produce different brain chemicals and different releases of hormones.
Is cortisol always bad for you, or is there like a balance? Is there a certain amount of time you should be angry?
We need cortisol. So we produce cortisol all the time. It's what wakes us up in the morning. It's what gives us energy and focus and drive. So it's extremely important. It balances our blood sugar. If you're producing way too much of it for too long, that's when it's a problem. So you're going to mess with the circadian rhythm, and you're supposed to make a lot in the morning and then waxes and wanes throughout the day, and then it decreases at night. So if you're like making as much as you usually do at the morning all the time, it's not going to be good for your health.
Going back to the aging process, how does anger contribute or speed up the aging process?
Have you ever seen people that are extremely stressed and they look a little bit sicker than other people?
Yeah, I noticed.
Have you ever noticed that type of feeling?
Yeah.
So it's affecting a lot of chemicals throughout your body, and some of them are your regenerative capabilities. Your skin could start to get more wrinkly when you're stressed all the time because you're producing more oxidative stress when you're stressed. And anger and stress are the same. Anything that causes that chronic stress is a problem. It's not just anger. There's a lot of things that could cause that chronic stress response, but that's going to affect how you heal and regenerate. And that's why you could get more wrinkly. That's why you could get more chronic diseases. That's why you could be at higher risk for gastric ulcers or higher risk for cardiovascular diseases because of all these chemical changes that are happening with this chronic stressful response. And that happens with being angry or other emotions.
I assume the same is true with the immune system. What effect does anger have on the immune system?
Let's say you're pumping out tons of cortisol again, right? Cortisol is our immune modulator. If you're producing too much of it, you're going to suppress your immune system, and then you're going to be at higher risk for viral infections, higher risk of cancer, and then decreased ability to be able to heal because the immune system does all that. Does so many different things. Immune system even affects our psychology, how we feel, our depression, our anxiety, our sleep. All that's affected by our immune system. So when we talk about you being angry and affecting your health, affects so many different things because of that hormonal dysregulation that happens.
You know, Kelly Turner wrote a book called Radical Remission, and in that book, she talks a little bit about this type of thing and how you get diagnosed with something like cancer, and then you're angry about it, and it actually kind of fuels the cancer. Can you talk a little bit about that?
How that happens is like we were discussing before, is let's say you're really angry or you're really stressed or you're really anxious about your diagnosis, which are normal emotions. I can understand why you do that, but that will make it worse because it's going to suppress that immune system response, right? Mm-hmm. And how are we going to attack cancer cells? Through our immune system. The reason why you likely got cancer is something caused your immune system to get suppressed. So then if you're letting these emotions of anxiety, anger, resentment, all these things come into you when you get that diagnosis, you're just going to let that cancer grow more because your immune system's not going to be able to have the tools to be able to fight that cancer as well anymore.
And the same is true with other autoimmune and similar sort of diseases.
Yes, correct? Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so great. So being an angry person like my father is going to lead to, I'm kidding, my dad's a great guy. He's actually a very lovable guy. I'm the one that I have a really poor stress response. And actually Dr. Hirsch, who is one of the doctors at your practice, it helps me a lot with that in terms of like having a positive stress response. We just saw, there was just a video I saw on TED Talks that he referred me to that was really, very helpful. It talked about being aware of your response to stress, which might be anger, but how do we stop it? So many Americans, they are like impulsive, like, somebody cuts you off and you're like, blah, 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 blah. Like, how do you interrupt that lightning quick process of just getting angry?
You have to make the decision that it's important to not get angry. And when you get up in the morning, you say, I'm not going to get angry today, no matter what happens. And if someone does something mean to me, my response is not going to be that I'm going to be angry about it. I'm going to be how I'm going to fix that. However you want to deal with it, you need to make the decision. You're not going to get angry. If you don't make that decision, it's not going to happen. And you need to make a goal that you're not going to get angry. And you give yourself certain rewards if you don't get angry through that day. And then it becomes just routine that you don't get angry. Like there's angry people and there's non-angry people, right? And those non-angry people have made the decision not to. Now, maybe some people get angry because they are in a lot of pain. Their liver's not functioning as well. We're not going to dive into that, but those are important things to address too.
You're hitting a lot of bells for me because I think that I'm kind of an angry person. I'm like a clown too, though, for those of you guys that don't know me, like I write comedy for TikTok. But I'm one of those guys that like when my kids spill something, like my impulse is to really like, it's not like I'm angry. I just, oh my gosh, guys, like you, this, that, and it's like short fused,
I'm the same way. I used to be, and I'm still working on it. I'm a short fuse kind of guy too, but earlier in my 20s, I decided what benefit comes from me acting this way? Yeah. What benefit comes from me being angry and what benefit comes from me being stressed? I make the decision that I'm going to deal with what's going on. I can't do anything about it. Angry is just going to make everything worse. So you make a decision to try to, okay, that happened. I'm going to talk to them and be like, hey, you need to not spill that water. You need to kind of watch where you're going and doing and whatever. And don't let yourself blow up, because if you don't tell yourself you're not going to let that happen, it's not going to happen. Just like we discussed about. The only way I know how to get over it is you make a decision that angry is not your first emotion when these things happen.
I'm assuming that's sort of like a mantra, probably, right? Like even an affirmation that you need to do on a daily, even when you're not angry, right? Like for me, It's like, right, it's something you do to preface, but then in that moment, there's got to be this like, you talked about in another episode being the whatever guy. Talk about that a little bit.
I love that is what I talk about, is because I've made that personal decision myself, is like, I need to be the whatever guy. In our culture, it's like, it's a bad thing to be the whatever guy. It's like, if you don't get angry about something, or you don't get stressed about something that bad happens, means you don't really care. That's not the truth. That's false cultural stuff we're dealing with. That's not the case at all. Whatever guy is, okay, that event happened, whatever. I'm going to do what I need to do about it, but I'm not going to stress about it and ruminate it for months on end because of that event happening. I'm just going to take care of it. And I'm not going to let myself get stressed out about it. Oh, I got a bad grade in school. Okay, that happened. What am I going to do to remedy that? I'm not just going to get anxious and stressed and then think about all the long-term things that can happen because I got a bad grade. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to get a medical school anymore, etc. All kinds of things like that might happen when you get that bad grade.
Yeah. So, and you're talking about making this decision, which I think is really interesting. You make the decision first, and then when you're in the situation, there's probably a process as well. Maybe a process of, for me, I'm kind of doing this, be the whatever guy. I say that to myself. Whatever guy. Like,
that's good, bud.
Scotland, my youngest daughter, she'll completely destroy the kitchen doing like a tea party or something. And it's just like, be the whatever guy. And I remember my mom, who I get my temper from my mom, is she would kind of do this counting to 10 thing, and she would be furious. I mean, I remember looking at my mom's face. She would be shaking and she would be like, 1, 2, and she would count to 10. What are some other in the moment things that we can do to stop the anger? And how much anger is good anger and bad anger? Like, what if you're angry for 10 minutes? Is that as equally unhealthy as being angry for a week?
10 minutes is much better than a week, by the way. But
okay.
Yeah, so I like that counting, because usually anger gets worse and worse and worse when you let the anger come. In the very beginning, it's not that bad, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. So that counting helps you calm down, because usually you're going to calm down. You just have that one little moment of the anger, and then that anger is going to go away. But then if you get angry, the other person is going to get angry, and then it's just a festering anger storm. Deep breaths is the best thing I like, because when you breathe, you're going to decrease that cortisol response. You're going to relax the entire body when you do deep breathing, deep breath through your mouth and slowly out your nose. You'll be pretty chill after about 15 breaths or so, and you will be like, oh, wait, it's okay. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
There's a great video on YouTube by Kelly McGonigal, and the stress response. If you guys Google that, Kelly McGonigal and the stress response, she talks about how that breathing before can actually open up your blood vessels. So your heart's racing, but your blood is not, it doesn't contribute as much to cardiovascular health. Can you talk a little bit about how that anger response affects your health, but also your hormones?
When you get this stressful anger response, we talked about how you're going to release this cortisol. Cortisol is then going to increase your heart rate. It's then going to increase your blood pressure. So let's say you're angry all the time. You're going to be putting a lot more pressure on your heart, and then you're going to be putting a lot more pressure on your kidneys. So then your heart's going to get enlarged, or it's going to become a kind of flabby, so to speak. And it's not going to be able to pump blood as well. And then that's going to lead to all kinds of issues in the future, like blood clots and leading to heart attacks and strokes. And then it could damage your kidneys. And then you're not able to filter toxins out of your body very well. And that's going to lead to a myriad of issues too. And then when you mess with one hormone, you're going to mess with all the other hormones. They work in synergy together. So you're going to mess with your thyroid, you're going to mess with your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone, your DHEA. All these things are going to be affected. So then if you're angry all the time, guys, do you guys want to have low testosterone? I don't think so. You guys don't want to have low testosterone, right? But if you're angry all the time, guess what's going to happen? Your testosterone is going to get lower. And you're not going to be able to be as strong and healthy. And same with women. That's going to mess with their estrogen. It might cause an estrogen-progesterone imbalance, making too much estrogen compared to progesterone. And that's going to lead to sleep disorders, PMS type of symptoms, cramping, fatigue, all kinds of things. And then it'll mess with your thyroid, and that will cause the fatigue, brain fog. So all kinds of things can happen from that anger response. And then all the other myriad of things we talked about just previously, how that is affected, right?
I could see like this anger cycle could really be devastating in a marriage if the husband is angry at the wife and it's festering and you're not talking, like, oh, she always like does this in the kitchen, or oh, he always does that. And then it affects sort of your sex hormones, which decreases your intimacy with your spouse. And then that creates a gap, a distance, you know what I mean? I mean, you could be on this really like crazy cycle if you're not careful. So like, how do you reverse that, right? Are there supplements? We talked a little bit about like what you could do in the moment, right? Some mental affirmations, things like this, but like, is there food? Is there diet? Are there healthy habits? What healthy habits can we use to sort of reverse and get out of this cycle?
I think some things that can help with your anger, but again, first you need to make the decision not to be angry. But then let's say you don't feel well, right? That's going to make you more angry. So you need to eat more fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, decrease your carbs, decrease your sugar intake.
Really?
Because that's just going to cause this chronic inflammatory response in your body. It's going to make you not feel as well. And then when you don't feel well, you're going to be angry much more often. You're going to, like if you're eating this way, you could be more in pain. Like when you get older, your joints start to degenerate, and then you're eating crappy food, causing inflammation, and then your joints hurt all the time. Then you're going to be more angry all the time. So eating a good, healthy diet and decrease that inflammatory response will help decrease your anger. Sometimes anger could be from poor detoxification in your liver. So taking some glutathione or NAC or some herbs like dandelion root will help boost liver function, can help some people with their anger issues.
Is that why we like the crotchety old man stereotype kind of like, get out of my way, you rotten kids, get off my lawn.
Yeah, they don't feel well, man. That's one of the main reasons why they do that, right? They're achy, they're fatigued, they're not doing what they love in life, and that's going to make you angry.
One thing that the cancer experience taught me is that the big thing is that I wasn't necessarily doing what I enjoy in life. My job was more of a job, not of a passion. And it's kind of like, point us in the right direction. But like, what do you do? Like, what do you do when you're in this place where you don't like your boss, you don't like your day to day, you're unhappy with your weight, you got gut issues? Where do you even, because it seems like what you need is like a whole lifestyle change. Like, where do you start in a scenario like that?
Well, let's say if you are in a very toxic job and you really hate your job, not saying you quit your job, but look for something else that you really enjoy, or, find something that you don't absolutely hate. You don't have to find a job that you absolutely love,
right?
But find a job that you don't hate. I mean, don't do that. Find something else. Go to schooling or whatever, or find a different career, or find a different boss or whatever, because that's not going to be good for your health. Quitting your job and then not having any money isn't a good situation either, right? So that's a fine balance there. Eating better, you just got to make the decision that you want to eat better and you want to exercise, because that's all going to make you feel better. I know it's hard, especially the first couple months are going to be very difficult with these lifestyle changes, but over time, you're going to feel better. You're going to be more energetic, and that will decrease your anger because you're doing all those right things. But yeah, you just got to make a decision that you want to make a change and you want to be better, and you need to be committed that you are going to make those changes.
What about the diet thing? It's really interesting to me because I feel like a lot of Americans today, maybe not so much our listeners, but are a lot of people today, they have a hard time. You say, oh, I'm an angry person, and you're telling me that cucumbers are going to get me out of that, right? Like, because here's the badge of honor I was wearing. I was wearing this badge of honor that, like, I was born this way. Yeah. I was born with the short fuse, and that's who I am, and you got to love me for me, and that sort of thing. What I learned is absolutely true, that the more plant-based my diet is, like, the happier sort of I am. Can you talk to us about why that is and what happens in your body with the diet change?
Let's say you're eating tons of sugar and you're spiking your blood sugar a lot. That's going to produce a lot of this change in dopamine in your brain, which is a feel-good hormone, but you're going to have these huge races of dopamine and drops of dopamine. Yeah. And that's going to make you not feel good at all when you're doing that. So that's why when you're sad or you're stressed, you're going to go to the ice cream, because it's going to increase that dopamine with all that sugar that you're eating and all that fat that you're eating. And then you just don't feel well. You feel good for just a second, and then you're back to where you were and feeling even worse. So those are some of the things that can happen with diet. We talked about how it can make you more inflamed and make all your body not work better. You're not going to absorb your nutrients as well. So then your cells aren't going to work as well. Then you're going to be tired. You're not going to think as well. You're going to be brain fogged, and then it's going to mess with your hormones. And it's just a huge cycle of what can happen when you're just eating poorly. And then when you don't feel well, you're going to be angry. We also talked about how your liver's not going to work as well. So if you're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, they're going to help your liver work better. And when your liver isn't bogged up, you won't be as angry either. So it's a lot of things happening when you decide to actually eat better. It will definitely make your anger better. But again, it's not just diet. You got to make a decision to not be an angry person. And you weren't just born an angry person. And being a male stereotype doesn't mean you need to be an angry person either. Sometimes people get that in their head that they need to be that way and they need to be angry. And that makes them who they are. And that makes them more important. It makes them seem like the thing is serious. And these are just false things that we have in our society.
Yeah, there's a lot of like personal development that has to happen. You know what I mean? I think on that end, because I know for me, I'm really angry because I'm so good looking that it became this. Yeah. Like, I felt bad for everyone else out there, but I'm obviously easy. But okay, so what about supplementation? Eating a better diet will help our biochemistry in the anger response. What about supplementation? The obvious one that comes to my mind is like any type of herbal supplement that might make you just calmer. What about supplementation as a curative or preventative?
Some big reason why you might be an angry person is you're just a very excitable type of person, and your brain's just kind of going all the time. Some things that can decrease that excitability is like GABA or pharma-GABA. GABA is our calming neurotransmitter. So if you take that helps calm the brain down. It's a good natural thing that you can take. Maybe 5-HTP could be a good option, but we increase detoxification throughout your liver, like we discussed before: glutathione, NAC, silymarin, turmeric, dandelion root, all these things to increase that. Some things to balance your blood sugar. You could take some berberine. That's good for your blood sugar support. So those are some quick rundown of some supplements that could potentially help your anger. But the big thing is you need to find out the cause of your anger. You need to find that out. We need to find out why your body's not working well and treat that. So these are just like some broad things, and they might not necessarily be the best thing for you individually. That's why you probably should go to an integrative physician or someone that understands this to really find out what's going on with your body and treat it appropriately. It's about causing balance in your body. You might be an angry person because your body's all out of whack. Yeah. And the integrative physician can bring your body back to its normal state.
Easy for you to say. Now that's an interesting, I think a really like a big takeaway for today's show is that if you are an angry person, then it might be worth your time to speak with an integrative doctor who can talk about why you're an angry person, because it might be diet or lifestyle decisions that are leading to this anger response, and you feel like it's you. And if you're in that situation or your spouse is in that situation, then please go to integrativemedica.com and set up a virtual appointment with Dr. Jake or one of the other doctors at the clinic and have a consultation. It's free, and you might find that there are solutions to some of these issues. Doc, as we sort of wind down the show for today, I want to go on that spouse thing. Like, let's say that you have sort of an angry spouse and maybe approaching them with their anger problem and why, hey, honey, you should go see an integrative doctor. Any suggestions on how we could approach that with an angry person? Because I can imagine that the spouse of an angry person may have learned not to take any problems to the angry spouse.
Well, first of all, the spouse shouldn't go towards the angry person in anger. They should go towards the person in love and in a calm voice and be like, hey, you're angry. I see you're angry often. I really care about you. I care about our relationship. And I think there's some things that you can do to help you feel better. I think that's the best way. Go in a calming situation. Go in a time that he isn't stressed or angry, and talk to him about that so he's not going to blow up. I mean, certain moments he's going to be in blow up stage and other moments he's not. Maybe it's a good time right after he's done watching a calming show or something. It's a good thing to go for that. It depends on the person. Now, when they're watching the news, that's probably not a good time to go in there. They're probably going to be pretty angry or anxious or whatever. But I think that's the best way to really go after it, in a calm state of mind and showing that you really care for that person, you love them, and you want to work on your relationship and make it better. And you see that their anger is messing with your relationships.
Yeah, never. I would recommend, as that formerly angry husband myself, like, never approach that person like, oh, you should go see a doctor in that moment. Like, do it over that wine or do it over that nice dinner and say, hey, I don't think that the anger is your fault. I think it's a diet thing or something like that. And I know for me, that was language that I really related to, because it enabled me to kind of get away from, I'm just a jerk. And it was like, oh, I might be eating the wrong foods. And I was open to that. Dr. Jake, I know you got to run. Thanks again for your time today. And thank all of you for listening to the podcast. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Hey, Dr. Jake, thank you for your time today. And if you enjoyed the show, then do us a favor and leave a review. It helps more people to find the show, which could save their life. And remember, this is a podcast and should not replace personalized attention from a medical professional like Dr. Jake. If you or someone you know has been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, cancer of any stage, or a life-changing illness, visit our website today and schedule a virtual appointment with one of our doctors who can lead you to a treatment plan in your area. That's integrativemedica.com. Integrative, MEDICA.com.
Thank you for listening to the Integrative Medica podcast with Dr. Jake. To hear past episodes and get alerts for the future, subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting platform, and be sure to follow us on YouTube as well. Just search for Integrative Medica with Dr. Jake.